Nice job. Jump, jump. Go. Follow. Move over. Let's go. All dogs go.
Okay, so welcome to a sort of a new series that I've had planned for a long time, which is introducing people out there who care about canines, dogs, puppies, foxes, coyotes, and wolves even, to trainers that they don't know. Find out everything about her except her home address and social security number. We're gonna leave that stuff out, but we're gonna get into it because you need to know about these people who you don't know about, but are yet better than the famous, really social media savvy people who have spent a lot of money and have a big team and stuff. So we're going to be talking to Jean Pam, who has 8 dogs and trains dogs, obviously, for other people, and has rescued shelter dogs, dogs abandoned, dogs abused, last chance dogs, you name it. She's got them in her group. I'm going to start out more of an interview style with Jean. You are currently living in Hawaii, from what I understand, but you're probably not from Hawaii because very few people are that are long-term there.
Oh, that's correct. I was actually raised in Portland, Oregon.
And you started training dogs. Actually, you started with dogs earlier than I did. So, I mean, you're one of the few people that it's on YouTube that has actually started before I did. Can you give us a breakdown? Like, what was your first dog, actually? Who was your?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. I was approximately 4 years old, and my stepdad came home. He worked in construction, and he came home with a Pekingese puppy. And this dog wouldn't let anybody near it except me. And as a very small child, I would do things like dress it up in dog clothes and all that kind of stuff because my whole life was about a dog. I didn't have any friends or anything. And so the dog was everything to me. And that was the beginning. And people would tell my mom, you need to really get that dog out of that dog cradle. It's the cradle. You know, she's got it wrapped up in blankets, but we can't get near it. She tries to bite us every time we try to take it out of the dog cradle. And that was the beginning. And by the time I was about 8 was when I started learning. My first book that I read was by Barbara Woodhouse. And then I also learned about this amazing man by the name of Rudd Weatherwax. Yeah. And I was a big fan of London, the Littlest Hobo, and Mintington and Lassie. I was just in awe at those dogs. Now that I look back on it, I can see where the cues were, inserted.
Barbara Woodhouse's big book was called No Bad Dogs. A lot of what she did, people would consider antiquated. And she was an obedience trainer, basically. She did try to solve some problems with dogs. She was effective at a certain level, but she wasn't doing extreme things that we see now, or some of the things you'll see on my. She was not capable of doing that. But anyway, so that was an influence, and I know that you were also influenced by some of the other people during that time period. But when did you start training dogs, though? Yeah, for other people.
14.
And how did that happen?
Well, it began when I had I'm not sure what he was. He appeared to be toy poodle. He was something. It appeared to be Boston Bull Terrier. He was a newish Chihuahua, and I got him from the Humane Society. He was rejected. And so I taught him about the sit, stay. I taught him how to jump off the refrigerator into my arms, go into bags, because we weren't supposed to have any dogs where I lived. And so when the landlord came over, I had to make sure I could hide him. So I taught him how to hide in the toilet after he flushed it. Like you turn off the water, he would stay in the toilet. And a couple of his tricks was dead dog, and he would go completely limp, totally limp. When I would say, poor dead dog, it was really adorable. But it was a matter of having to do. I've even had to put him in the refrigerator when the landlord has come over. Okay, the dog was totally cool. So when other people saw this, they said, "Well, can you teach my dog any of that stuff?" And that's where it began.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty unique. The refrigerator. I think maybe you should mention that to other people that you keep your dogs cool.
Oh, I like it. Well, of course, I turned off the refrigerator. My mom had me turn it off, of course. But
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
I'm just you know,
so
it brings new meaning to chill out, right? That
absolutely,
people are saying chill out.
absolutely.
You got the dog. Yeah, he's in there. He's coming out now. But that's actually pretty interesting. That's everybody has. Those of us from way back have different origin stories, and
Mhm.
it's good to understand how that happened. And so you just started in the neighborhood then, as far as training the neighbor.
Essentially, yeah. My mom's friends saw what Max was doing, and they started asking questions about how did I get him to do that. And so I said I really couldn't explain it. It was just something a connection the dog and I had, and just something I kind of instinctually knew. You had mentioned as we were talking earlier about people being blind and not understanding green. Well, it just happens to be that my surviving quadruplet, my daughter, she was blind, and it was interesting that you happened to have brought that up, and that also helped me understand uh, the way dogs perceive the world. It's very different than everybody else, and people don't understand that. Uh, but we are people, and we assume, like even with one another,
Yeah.
everybody sees things the way I see them or the way you see
Hmm.
them or whatever. And we're talking about a completely different species here. Their senses are different. Their ability to see is different. Scent. I know you've done a lot of scent work and such. And their hearing, everything is different. So they perceive the world very differently than we do. Their sense of time is very different. Unfortunately, we as humans, we just assume that everybody perceives the world the same way as we do as
Yeah.
individuals.
You were training dogs in the neighborhood, and then you
Mhm.
kind of just branched out. Did you start? Did you do group classes, or did you were just
I
everything?
had considered it. Unfortunately, even though I have a background in teaching and special education,
Yeah.
um, one of the issues that I have is when people are watching you do something, they never carry through with whatever you teach them, and then they come back and say, "Well, that doesn't work for me." And I find out later that they did not continue. Somehow people seem to think that you teach dogs something once and it magically makes everything work. And that's not the way it works. With my guys, training is a way of life. It's
Yeah.
24/7, every minute I have with them. My own personal philosophy is that, and you've heard me say this on videos, if you don't train them to do the right thing, you are training them to do the wrong thing. If you're not saying no, then it means yes. Dogs are binary, yes, no, on, off. They don't have that gray area that people have. And people don't understand that. They will talk to a dog, and the dog is like, well, and then they get mad at the dog because the dog has no idea what in the world's going on. And I often tell my clients, imagine if you speak English, imagine going over to Greece and then having people get mad at you because you're not getting what they're saying. It's the same thing for the dog.
Right. Yep.
Well, why is it your dogs do what you tell them to do? And I tell them, if you listen closely, I only use select words, and I use a lot of hand gestures. I depend on tone, facial expression, and body language, and scent, my body scent. And they're like, well, your dogs always do what you tell them to do. And I said, no, not always, but very high percentage of the time they do. I mean, they're thinking, feeling creatures. They're not robots, and I don't want robots unless we're out in public
Yeah.
at an
Well.
open area by a freeway.
Yeah.
That's
Well.
different.
Well. Yeah. You bring up some important things, and one of the key things that I think we should try to get across to the people watching is that too many people, here's a fault. They try to project their entire worldview and their entire experiences onto dogs and expect dogs to respond. And one of the things I'm one of the people who don't like to mix children with dogs. I don't like that whatsoever because you got small primate behavior, it doesn't mix with canine behavior whatsoever. And supposedly the big frontal cortex ones, the primates, don't want to learn how, and they don't want to teach their kids not to abuse dogs, and they don't want to teach them how to approach dogs. It's the dog's fault in their mind, because then, of course, they don't take responsibility, and it's just easier, just like you're saying, because I'm an academic linguist, for one thing, and I speak many languages. And you get the people, monolinguals, who want everybody else to understand what they're saying, and especially with idiomatic phrases and things. It's the same thing with the people,
Exactly.
with the kids. So I just try to keep them separated, because a lot of the things, as you know, that children do are completely wrong. Coming in real fast on dogs and coming up above them and hitting them on the head. These are all violent. This is aggressive behavior to dogs. And so what people want a lot of times are slaves. And I don't want slave dogs, that will take any sort of abuse whatsoever. I don't agree with that. I don't want to train that at all. And I know there are people who are out there who say, well, the dog's got to do this. Not the dogs that I train. And you couldn't work with the dogs that I have that are high tempo, as we call it. You try to do that with a sled dog. You try to do that with a real military dog.
It's over.
It's not going to work. And the same thing with some of the hunting dogs too. I don't mean the bird dogs. I mean the hunting dogs that go after boar. Yeah, that sort of thing.
That's what Prince is. He's a foxhound, American foxhound, and Catahoula that I can discern at this point, and he shows it all the way. I also have like Daisy. She's an Egyptian pharaoh hound, and a Rhodesian Ridgeback, and it comes out. Totally comes out. And now I have a Prince, not Prince, but Odie. That dog is not going to put up with any BS from anybody. Excuse my language, but he's not.
Don't worry about that.
I don't expect him to. When I meet people with my dogs, the first thing they would, let me touch your dog. And I said, no, you don't touch my dogs.
Yeah, we agree with that.
That's kind of rude. No, it's not rude. I'm keeping you from being
good. Can I touch your kids? You know what I mean? Could I come up and run up on your kids?
Yeah, exactly.
And which is also something that's pretty strange. If you have horses, people don't run up to try to pet your horses. They stay away. But with dogs, they think that this is it's okay to do. But anyway, I bring that up because that's a source of a lot of problems, and a lot of things, as you know, we can really. Our management. It's not a training problem. It's a management problem. If people are like, well, the dog. For example, I've had people say, this was in the UK. Oh, these dogs are going after sheep, and they should be trained not to go after sheep. It's like, well, they're acting like the sheep act like prey to them. There are no fences. Why don't you put fences up? No, they need to be trained. I said, okay. So using your thinking, then, if you have a 4-year-old kid that you live in an apartment that's on the 40th floor on a balcony, you shouldn't put up any sort of barrier for them to keep them from falling off, because they should be trained not to fall off, right? It's when they're
That's it exactly. One of the things that really gets to me is you're taking a creature with a brain the size of a lemon and trying to compare it with another being that has a 3 to 4 pound brain. The one being is designed mainly for scent processing. The other one has cognitive thinking. Well, some of them have cognitive thinking abilities, and being able to be logical and be able to future project, etc. And the other one lives in the present.
Yeah.
I found that if I work with the dogs as though they are learning disabled children, it's on. You just teach them a little thing, let them master it, go to the next step, let them master it. And then eventually all of this education, the teaching, training, whatever you want to call it, begins to build into the actual goal that you want. You can't just come in and say, do this, and the dogs are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm trying, and then the human gets frustrated and angry when it has nothing to do with the dog. Or people get big, powerful dogs, and they have no idea what they have in their house. I'm sure, Chris, you may agree with this. People also don't realize that these dogs are predators. That's why they have fangs, and they're going to act like wolves sometimes. That's just who they are. And I get upset with people because they expect these amazing animals to suddenly become toys for
Yeah,
humans.
furniture. Too many people try to treat the
Yeah,
dogs
and
like
the
they're furniture.
purses and decorations. They're not.
Yeah,
They are
yeah,
living, feeling, thinking beings with really powerful wild genes in them. And sometimes those genes get activated. Sometimes it's really obvious. Other times something will trigger it, and somebody gets bit. And now guess what? Somebody wants to put that dog down. And
yeah.
I get dogs who are, like I said, I have dogs here on the dangerous dog list. And as you can see here, I've got peace in this house,
Yeah.
because everybody knows who's in charge. Everybody knows who protects everybody. And, that's it. Well, we can get into, we get more into the pack dynamics.
And this is a good point to get into something that we can talk about that's unique because, as you know, the dynamics change. You have a lot of people who are pseudo wannabe uh, dog
Yeah.
trainers who
Hmm.
are like a witch doctor is a neurosurgeon. It's that they're about that equivalent of that skill. And so, really, what I'm trying to do on the channel altogether, people will sometimes say, "Well, you don't give complete tutorials. If you're interested, you contact me. And you go through. You got to show that you're sincere, and you got to show that you're going to pay the dues, which
Hmm.
we paid the dues, obviously. But that's one of the things. But also to inspire people what is possible, because I'm doing things with dogs that other people are not able to do, and that's why I put a challenge up. Initially, I thought the challenge would just make people come up, and we would see the better trainers. But no, what they get angry. Their ego. Talk about the egos. They get into ego defense mode. Defense mechanisms kick
Exactly.
in, and they're like, no, blah, blah, this is not. That's like saying I don't, and they act like, oh well, you can do this and that, but I don't need to go to you. That's like saying you don't want the best surgeon. You don't want the best pilot. You want an unskilled pilot. That's okay, because now everything's about if you're horrible, it's okay. And this is the same thing. What I'm with the point of the channel, and that's the point of this, is also to bring out uh, trainers that nobody would know. But what is special here that I want to get into is the fact that the dynamics change around 5 dogs. Now, none of these would-be guys have, like Zach the Hack. George doesn't have 5 dogs at this time. This Taylor the Failure Wilkowski doesn't have 5 dogs. He barely has 1 dog. These guys who want to, all these people talk about ideology, and that instead of results, they don't focus on results. They focus on ideology. The same thing with Victoria Stilwell. She didn't have 5 dogs and above. This Robert froze my last brain cell off. Hines, he doesn't have 5 dogs, and neither does Dale the Fail McCluskey. He doesn't have 5 dogs. That Joel Beckman doesn't have 5 dogs. At one time, he's going to babble and take my challenge, Beckman. I don't see you stepping up. I've called out a lot of people, and I've sent them messages, and they refuse because it is too hard. And the point, and I just want to throw this out there, the point of the Jedi Dog Master Challenge is to show that your ability as a trainer with a variety of dogs across a different spectrum and working with the 3 dog challenge. A lot of people think that's easy. It's not easy.
That takes
And
some serious skill. I have seen some of your work, and for example, just today I was watching one of your videos with one of your dogs jumping through a hoop. And
yeah,
some people may think, oh, that's easy. No, it's not. That takes a lot of individual steps to get that dog go, hey, let's do this, rather than forcing the dog to go through,
yeah,
having the dog want to go through. And on cue, every
yeah,
time on cue. That
yeah.
takes some serious skill.
Yeah. Well, one of the big things that's why I use my American, monster American Bulldog at
Akuma.
100, yeah, Kuma, 120 pounds, because no one's capable of doing that. No one, and that's one of the things that shoots down a lot of the people who work with niche dogs. The sport training people, whether that be the border collie people with the agility dogs, or the IGP people with German shepherds or Malinois or French ring sports. They're used to that type of dog only, and switch them over to these other dogs and they can't handle it. And the trick dog trainers can't do the quarter-mile sit stay or the quarter-mile recall. So that's why they don't want to compete with me, because I can blow them out in across a whole spectrum. And the quarter-mile people want to act like, well, I could do that. Then show me the video, because if you cannot show me the video, you're lying, and quit lying. And because I can do a lot further than a quarter mile, and there are a lot of tactical trainers who can do that, but they don't want to step forward. I mean, they want to remain hidden because to us, that's not that big of a deal, really. I could do much, much, much further than that. So that's not something that's trouble, But I want to throw that out there because again, we're getting back to the dynamics with 5 or more dogs, and this is where we were saying when the dogs have innate drives and people want to call it instincts, it becomes more apparent when you have more dogs with each other because they feed off each other. They work as a group. So do humans. I mean, the mob, as people say, the mob rules.
What they call mob mentality. With dogs, they call it pack mentality. And I know you are very aware of this. When I have to, for example, when somebody comes to my door, of course, the guys all alert. And as you saw, they alerted me, and I get them quieted down and such. And then I have them do the follow command. You saw that. To walk out to the door. Everybody has to sit now. Now everybody's starting to get activated because I've always got that one dog deciding they have to have the last word in. You know what I'm saying? The last part. And now everybody has refocused from me onto that dog. Now we're becoming one unit. We are no longer individuals. And then I have to step in with a very firm voice and get everybody refocused on me. And this is something that people don't understand. One of the dangers of having dogs roaming around free. I go to my places where I let my dogs run free, but otherwise my dogs are always under my control. Is it perfect every time? No, I would rather raise my voice and, quote unquote, bark at my dogs to knock something off rather than have a dog jump out of my car window and have all 7 follow. Because I am the one I am responsible for those lives. I am the one as the pack leader, call it the authority, or however you want to phrase it. I work as a partnership with my dogs. I also have a relationship with them, and they have a clear understanding who is in charge. And when dogs are not, and you may or may not agree with this, but for the majority of dogs out there, they are not designed to be leaders. When and I've seen this very much with the dogs that I have, when they don't have somebody to follow that they can trust, they fall apart and they become very dangerous. They don't know what to do. They don't know what the rules are. They don't know what they're supposed to do. Nobody has told them how they're supposed to behave. What do I do? They're supposed to be in a pack, and a pack has hierarchy, and a pack has rules. All of the dogs understand what to expect, and they're not asking anything unreasonable out of any of the dogs.
One of the things that I think we can bring up is that the people who don't have 5 or more dogs don't learn this. This is something that's very crucial, and that's that you use your voice as control. And voice, I don't mean speaking whatever language. You do things because they're signals. That's what people don't get. This is a big area of research that was done, and people still don't get this. It's like when I'm in the park, because I go to a park that has like 10 different dog trainers that show up at this place, depending on what time of the day you're there. But anyway, and I always hear, leave it. And I was like, oh, yeah, this moron learned from the pet store fit people.
Yeah,
that's where they,
or whatever.
yeah, PetSmart. The thing is, like, why are they saying leave it? Because they're talking to themselves. They're not talking to the dog. And the same thing some people get in arguments about, well, why are they using German words and this and that? It's like, look, people, they're just signals. It's the same thing. You can't, and it's like, well, I'm communicating with my dog. And so, no, you don't have a language, people. And I can explain in academic terms why you don't have a language with the dog. You have signals. You can give signals to your dog, and the dog can give you signals. And most people are not adroit enough to pick up on any of the signals from the dog whatsoever. That's something that takes time. You have to care, number one. And here's the final part of that analogy. It's like, look, a traffic light can give you information because it signals to you. Can you have a conversation with the traffic light? No. But you're still receiving, what the red, yellow, and green mean. The same thing with the dog. This is very few trainers actually get this. Very few trainers, and the general public does not understand this. But what I was then this all leads into using your voice for control. This is something that the people who really know dogs the best and This is the pet dog people, what I call the little leaguers, and they always get so angry about this. I'm not a little leaguer. Yeah, you are, because the people who do the other types of dogs can easily do your type of training, but you cannot. That's why, I've asked these people, where's your bomb dog? Where's your avalanche
Hmm.
retrieval dog? Where's your sentry dog? Where's your scout dog? Where is your, boarhound? All these types of dogs that I've worked with, trained, they can't do it. But number one are sled dog people, because why? They have the most dogs. They have the most dogs. Now, you and I have a lot of dogs, but it's nothing compared to some people have over 100 dogs. And of course, they got to have people helping them, because you know how it is with the number we have. It's
Oh,
full time.
it can be a handful. You
Yeah,
get pulled in all these different directions,
yeah,
and
it's a
it can be
nightmare.
yeah, it is a big nightmare at times. You
Yeah.
know,
And but also the sled dog trainers also spend the most amount of time, because if they're a long distance racer, they're out for weeks at a time with the dogs, training to get ready, sleeping with the dogs in the snow, out in the thing, risking their lives with the dogs,
hmm
because every year they get attacked. Now again, a lot of people, what, bears? No, moose. Moose, they're most dangerous. And of course, dogs and moose are mortal enemies. And moose get on the trails that the sled dog people want to run on, because it's packed, it's easier to go on. And if you're the long distance teams, they got at least 14 dogs. You're a long way back from the lead dog, or the two lead dogs. Nowadays a lot of people use two, but they're out in front, and that's you have got to depend on that dog. Now, these people who want to do the what I call the SS training with their dog, you see them in the park where it's a pet dog, and yet they want them to do the IGP stargazing crap and be right next to them at all times. That type of training doesn't cut it with a sled dog that can control your outcome and his outcome too, because if there's a mistake made, dogs and people die. Now, I don't think anybody's ever died in agility contest, and nobody's died in AKC or UKC obedience or rally or any of these other things. This is a different level, and I will point blank say nobody knows dogs like sled dog people who've done it for a long time. Some hunting dog people who've been around a long time also know dogs. So I'm giving everyone a free little tidbit here. If you happen to know anybody like that, or around anybody like that, go learn from them, because their knowledge of dogs, canines, is superior to anything
it is. I agree.
Zach the Hack George could dream up in his wildest wannabe something dreams. So I put that out there because we're back to this, our dealing with 5 or more dogs. Now, this is something that you've got use your voice, is what I started with. You got to use your voice. And what we do a lot of times is, because if you try to use an e-collar, or you try to use whacking the dog, which is what people used to do quite a bit, right? Or, even hitting them with a newspaper.
There's a guy on YouTube that rolls up towels and stuff
Yeah,
and
yeah,
whacks
bonk. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
bonker. It
yeah,
bonks.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Gary. Actually, he's a really good trainer. He's actually he started with Karen Pryor, and then Pryor's
Hmm.
ideology changed, and then he's a good trainer. He's a lot of people. His personality is a little strange. He's in Phoenix, Arizona. A lot of these other people don't know about him nowadays, but he's the one of the ones that started the whole thing, because he's the one that got the clickers and stuff. Anyway, but people, I know everything about every type of dog training on the planet. So anyway, but what I was getting to was, we're using the voice as a disruption. We stop them before, because we get the flare ups, because the dogs are going to flare up, and we don't let it escalate. Because
Hmm.
if you can get it before it's decided, before it actually gets to the actually getting into it, and it starts escalating, because they flare up, and you and I both know that we deal with it, we disrupt that, and with voice. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't understand that," because yeah, you don't understand that doesn't mean that what we're doing is wrong. And this is one of the things, by having this dynamic, you of course have more experience with dogs. This was what I was getting to with you, and you got 7 dogs in the car, and 7 dogs going out to the field, coming back, and you got at least 5 going to the store. Now, I will challenge any of these people that I've mentioned so far, all of them. You show me you doing that. Okay, Beckman, I'll choose you again, because he's got a huge following. He started some bogus. He's training people to be dog trainers. Anyway, him, Zach the Hack, all the other people. Let's see you do that with 5 dogs. And you were like 15 minutes. I cut it because people don't want to sit through 15 minutes.
Exactly. So I was going about 15 minutes.
Yeah, 15 minutes.
What it was is that when in the beginning, when you saw me standing there and doing different motions,
Yeah, yeah.
I was explaining to my dogs that I refer to myself as mom. All my dogs understand that certain sounds apply to each individuals that I come in contact with. They also understand that if I say Peaches, then no one else has to listen. If I say Daisy Dog, then Daisy knows that she has to pay attention. They understand those sort of things. Considering that they're dogs, they have a pretty good vocabulary. Um, and so what I was saying is, Mama, go. And I was pointing to the store and I was going, doggies, all the doggies, wait, like that. You lie down and you wait.
Yeah.
You stay right where I want you. And I'm going to go in here. And then when I come back, I'm going to bring a treat for all the doggies. And you saw it. They were just laying there quietly waiting. There were cars going by with dogs barking. There were people walking back and forth. There were actually, Gail's told me, the lady who was doing the video while I was in the store, she told me that there were several people who went over to attempt to touch my dogs and they turned their heads away. Also, a lady walked by with a dog and they just remained in place. My dogs are also taught never to take anything off the ground. They are not allowed to eat anything except from my hand and their bowls. How do you steal a dog? You lure them. How do you poison a dog? You feed them poison food.
Right, yeah.
And my dogs are taught not to do that. That was a little harder because because they're scavengers besides being predators.
Yeah.
That nose says, hey, that smells good. Let's eat it. They don't get into the garbage. They don't counter surf. They don't. I do have a video out that shows that I can walk away and leave my food on my desk and not one of my dogs will even approach it. As a matter of fact, you were talking about sled dogs. Well, Prince has been trained to pull a wagon. So I don't have to use the carts or anything. I just load whatever up in the wagon and, go do whatever I have to do in the stores that I'm in.
Well, this is all things that the pet dog crowd. I mean, the people who have pet dogs. These are the sort of skills that they need, that they want. That's exactly what they're looking for. And this is something I'm saying. If she can obviously do this with 5 and 6, 7, 8 dogs at one time, she can obviously train one dog to do this. This is the thing a lot of people miss. It's like, well, I don't need blah blah blah. It's like, but she can do it with a group of dogs, and you can't do it with a group of dogs. So who's better? Oh, the person who can do it with more dogs. So obviously that means it's easy. It's easy to train one dog, which a lot of people miss. I think. But anyway, so one of the things I think I can tell is that you probably worked with severely retarded children at some point, because I did. Because I'm seeing the sign language that because a lot of them are at 80 IQ and below, they're nonverbal usually.
Correct.
Yeah. And they also are violent. They become violent.
A lot of them do a lot of acting out, autism and such.
Yeah. So I mean, I dealt with that because I taught high school. I did a lot of work and I've done a lot of things over the years. But so I recognize that. But there is a difference too in somebody who does have a background in actual professional certification teaching. You have to prove yourself, and you have to know, for example, learning theory. You have to know developmental psychology, go through Piaget, of course. All these things that you have to know, that the people that are out here that are pseudo ultra-crepidarians is what they really are. And
you're being polite.
Yeah, but this is they want to say things, but they don't know any of this stuff, and they're wrong. They wouldn't pass a course because they're wrong. And when I hear a lot of people talking about B.F. Skinner, they never went through a course. They couldn't pass it. See, my first degree was in behavioral sciences. I trained rats and cats to do complex things. I mean, pick up a certain colored marble, put it in a certain hole, this sort of thing. These people are incapable of doing any of that whatsoever. They could never do it. And they don't know what Metner notation is. So those people who do, they're very few. But anyway, my point being is that if you really care about the canines and you're a cynologist, which a lot of people don't know that word in the United States, but if you study cynology, you're going to know about ethology, behavioral ecology, zoology, ethology, which is kind of dropped away now, ethology. But you're going to know these things about canines, not just about domesticated dogs, because that's one of the things that people have freak out.
Well,
Well,
you
what
have
breed?
foxes, wolves, and just to name a couple that are all
Yeah,
in canine.
coyotes. Yeah, coyotes.
Coyotes, yeah,
Yeah,
all of that.
yeah,
And
jackals.
people
But
just get it.
the
They
people,
don't.
like, people freak out with, like, oh, what breed is that? My jungle dog. He's a real dog. Well, what is that? Because they're so used to artificially bred dogs that
Correct.
everybody doesn't know what a. And it's like, still, in the majority of the world, real dogs are more numerous than the artificially. It's only in the Western Europe and in North America where you're going to find all these artificially bred dogs. These are man-created breeds. They're not natural. They didn't naturally select out to be a Weimaraner, for example. They didn't naturally select to come out as a Saint Bernard, because these dogs will not exist in the wilds because they're too big. The energy expended, calorie needs are too high. That's why you'll see dogs. They're around my jungle. My jungle dog is actually a little bit bigger than most. They're going to be from like 25 to 40, up to 50 pounds and pounds. That's generally, if you go north away from the equator, they're going to be a little bit heavier, but that's because of their ability to scavenge, their energy needs, their ability to be agile, and all this, and be able to jump and things like that. As you know, I would never try to get my monster bulldog to jump. It's just,
Oh, that's going to be a disaster.
yeah,
His bones are too big. I mean, he's
yeah,
just too heavy.
yeah,
Besides, you probably don't want the hole in the floor.
yeah. Well,
He's a big boy.
it'd be like trying to go to a car show and they're trying to have the semi jump over something.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it destroys the semi, right? But Robert and I have talked about that before, about certain things you should only do with certain dogs, and a lot of people try to get dogs to try to do poodle tricks, and most dogs cannot do that, other than poodles around that size and stuff. Now let's kind of move into, so what type of training are you doing mostly these days with other people's dogs?
Well, due to me being older, and I have, as you saw in the in my video, I have back issues now that have really stopped a lot of what I used to do. These days, I work a lot with the rescue dogs. I work with dogs who have been traumatized, which can be pretty challenging, as you are probably aware of. I also work a lot with companion animals. I work with dogs who have been abandoned, dogs who have been actually tortured in some cases. That requires an incredible amount of understanding psychology, being able to put yourself in the animal's place, and not everybody can do that. There is a very fine line between enabling a behavior and bringing comfort, and helping the dog learn how to trust. Very fine line. And sometimes you just have to try a couple of different things, and you have to be able to pay attention. And most people are too busy talking and not busy paying attention. Dogs talk all the time. They talk, I mean, they're constantly giving us signals and letting us know where they are. Unfortunately, people in their great wisdom are blind to it.
Are you training any people to be future trainers, or do you have any
I have
mentors?
considered that. Unfortunately, where I live, there is a huge problem with inconsistency and people showing up. They have no clue.
Right, right. Yeah,
What does everything seem okay with this dog, with the way it's behaving, or what are you seeing, or can you tell me what you are observing? They have no clue.
right. You
Even
know,
though you've already talked to them about what could be happening and what to look for, it's just like goes right over the top of their head. To that, I mean, everybody dumps everything and do the dog's aggressive. Well, not really. I mean, if you get to the core problem, usually they calm right down for most dogs. You just have to get to figure out what the core problem is, because they don't know of any other way to react. Fight, flight, freeze,
right. Yeah,
you know,
that's it.
and they can't, they're communicating, but nobody's paying attention.
Right.
I like to throw in frustration with that one. And if you're not paying attention, I mean, they're telling you over and over and over and over, but no one's paying attention. But so guess
Mhm.
what? Well, there's only one way that I can get you to listen to me. You bite, you become aggressive, you make the threat go away. Whatever you have to do, you make that threat go away, or you get that person's attention. Sadly, before it ever gets to that point, you need to learn how to read the dog. Well, most people don't
Mhm.
have any idea what to do.
Right.
So they call me in and I say, well, let's look and see what your dog is doing. Let me see your dog in its environment. Let me see how you interact with the dog. And before I ever go out to see a client, I ask them to do a video. Well, my dog is doing this, this, and this, and this. I want to see how people interact with a dog without me being there. Dogs never lie.
Right.
Dogs
Right.
never lie.
Right.
Humans lie all the time.
Right, right. Well, if you want to get to this level, now you may. Some people will say, "Well, I can't. I don't want to do that. I can't do it." Well, then fine. Then you contact people like Jean and get her to help you. I don't know why that's so hard for people to understand. There are resources out there
I
now.
don't know.
Do consults. Okay, people do consults. But if you do want to get to the level that we're talking about that you see in videos and stuff, you're going to have to. It's going to have to become your life for a while, because something that John and I share is that we're with our dogs. I sleep with my dogs. I mean,
Correct.
you will never be able to do what I do unless you have that bond. A dog that's been kept in a kennel, even if you're training the dog, even these people who train dogs that are good trainers, and the dog's in a kennel, it will never be able to do what I do with it, my dogs that actually stay with me, because there is a higher level of bonding, and it just
Hmm.
does not exist if you will not do this. And that's fine if you don't want to do it. That's okay, because there are some of us who do. We're some of us that are insane and crazy, and we do that with our
It's true.
with our dogs.
It's true.
But but so you people but recognize this. Just admit it. What I don't like is when people don't want to admit, like they don't want to admit that they're not as good of a trainer, or they try to act like, well, that's not important. It is important. Or they want to act like, well, I don't going to do that. This is not going to do it. Just admit that you're a little leaguer, people. You're a little leaguer. Can a major league baseball player play little league? Yes, and he's going to decimate them. Can a little leaguer make it to play major league
Yeah.
baseball? No. It's the same
No.
thing. There are levels with everything, people, and so many people want to get angry about this. Look, we didn't hold you back. We didn't stop you, and we're actually giving you resources. Come to us if you want to be able to
Yeah.
do what you see, or have us help with your dogs and such. And like you're gonna, as you'll see in the things that I put up with Jean Pham doing the stuff with the dogs. Unless you can do that, don't make stupid comments. And if you can do that, show me the video. Otherwise, I don't believe you. Claims without evidence don't mean anything. It's not empirical science. The age of reason has been lost on the millennials and the sub-millennials. They think it's about feelings. No, it's about provable, observable, repeatable facts. I
Or as
guess
we used to say, the proof is in the pudding.
yes, it's there.
Don't tell me about how great a cook you are.
Yeah,
Show me.
right, exactly. And I don't think they ever pass any research and methods courses either. I see it because they don't know. They don't know anything. I bring up things, they try to ignore it. Like, do you even know what the null hypothesis is? They don't know that. They know nothing about anything. It's important to give this information out so that people, the
I
general
agree.
dog public, because they don't like, what is this? What's he talking about? This is something I don't know about. This is something, is it important? It is to the people who want to call themselves professionals. It is to people who want to be up. And if they really think that they're great trainers, they should know all of this. They should know all of these things. But many people do not, because they're turning out. They're just because in the 90s, in the 90s, the urban dog training became huge. Before that, as you well know, back in the day when you started and when I started, there were obedience clubs. There were dogs,
Yeah,
like there were hunting dogs, there were sled
exactly.
dogs, there was military, police, and movie dogs. That's all there was for training. There wasn't this urban thing, because people, it's like cat training now. I can train cats, but people don't want it, right? I mean, people are not going to pay for me to train their cat. that
And
was
I believe cats can be trained. I don't know. Did you receive the video I sent you of my cat? I trained my cat.
yeah.
I found her. She was found in the garbage, dying. I mean, literally in the dumpster when she was like 3 weeks old. And were you able to see that my video?
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay. And people say no, you can't train a cat.
Yeah, you
Well, I'm
can.
telling my cat to get up here, to get down there, I go over here, do this, do that. You just have to understand the animal.
Right. But my point
Yeah,
is that nobody cares about that. You know, they're not
no,
they're but that was how it was with the urban dogs back when we started.
yeah,
Nobody's like,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
nobody said, well, I'm not gonna, I don't need anybody to train my dog. I'm not gonna pay $3,000, which is what the going rate is these days. Three weeks of board and train, e-collar training from day one to the end, and they're not, as you know, they're not finished. You can't get a dog in 3 weeks to be stable, as we used to call it. And that's $3,000. That's the normal price nowadays. Good. That makes me bring up one of the big points I wanted to bring up with you, what you and I are doing. That
Okay.
because I want to call out the hypocrisy of these bastards out there, like Zach the Hack George and a load of them. I'm doing this to help dogs, to save dogs.
No, they're not. They're
No, they're
getting
not.
money. They're
For
all
my,
about money.
it's all about money, and it's also about saying this. They think they sound good. Where the hell are all the dogs? Now, Zach the Hack is making over $1 million a year. He should have 50 dogs. You know, where's the rescue that he started? He didn't start one. You know, they don't have all these dogs. And you and
Well, even
I,
if he didn't have a rescue, he's got money. I don't mean to be critical, honest. Okay, but I don't have much money, but I
yeah,
have kennels. I have my dogs living
yeah,
here. I get dogs that nobody wants.
right,
I can't turn them away. These dogs are in need. My dogs are fed before I am. And why? I mean, rather than seeing him out there just in his cute little clothes and stuff, and wherever that place is that he does most of his filming, rather than doing that, why don't you take that and turn it into a small rescue site?
yeah. This is what I'm saying.
Stop talking and show me what you're doing.
Yeah, well, this is what I'm saying. There are very few people who are actually helping dogs, and a lot of these overpriced urban pet dog scammers are the ones saying, "Well, if the more I get paid, the more I can help dogs." No, you're not. You're trying to go after the people with disposable income. You're not helping the dogs that need the most help. Number one. Number two, you don't have a bunch of dogs. You're not saving dogs. Some of these people are dog trainers. They have no dog. That's like being a guitarist with no guitar. You know.
I was going to say something like that. Exactly. I mean, how do you know what it's like to have a dog with issues?
Yeah, if
Other
you
than
don't. Yeah, if you
you don't. I was once told there are teachers and then there are people who read textbooks. And I said, well, what does that mean? And they said, I was told there are people who actually take the knowledge in their own instincts and they experience these things to actually get in there, do the dirty work, do the grunt work, get their hands dirty, and in some cases, literally get their hands dirty. And those are those people who know what they're doing. They're experiencing it. And then you have the people over here in their pristine little, offices and such that don't know, forgive my words, but don't know crap. All they know is what they have read in a book somewhere. They don't know anything or what they've heard somebody say. They don't know anything. And yet they come on as though they're the authorities or the experts. And
but
it's a pet peeve of mine because I
yeah.
see so many dogs being ruined by this kind of thing.
Well, they don't have operational experience, is what it is.
Correct.
They don't have
That's
operational.
exactly what I mean.
Yeah, they don't have operational experience. But the thing is, I am sick of these people saying that they're helping dogs while they're making over 100,000 a year as a dog trainer, but they're not helping any dogs with it. None. And this is where you and I are paying out money more than anybody else would pay out to help dogs. And there's some other people. There's a woman in Phoenix who's a fairly good trainer, but she's also about rescue. I mean, she has 16 dogs or 17 dogs. She also rescues dogs and takes them in and rehabilitates dogs, that sort of thing. These are what these idiots would lead you to believe that they're doing. They're not. None of the, what I'm trying to get across is that people who really care about dogs are very few, and very far between. So this is something, and it's really a purity, being authentic about the love for canines, really trying to make sure that the dogs live, and that you're understanding dogs, and that you could pass this on to other people if they show the same drives. But what we're seeing are people just trying to cash in, as it were, and it's really irritating. But when you and I started, there weren't this type of scumbags. They didn't exist back
No,
then.
they didn't. Not at all.
No.
I don't. I'm focusing on Zach right at the moment.
Yeah.
I did a video about him because I don't like to get into the whole war on dog trainers and stuff. But as I said in my video, the stuff he was going on about, in my personal opinion, was this man is mentally unstable. He is so focused on himself. I mean, he is so self-centered. He is so sure that what he's doing is right. And no matter how much evidence that you put in front of him,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's just so, he's obsessed, and that I don't want anybody like that working with.
Yeah.
Well, but people believe it because of the way he comes across. If you watch his videos, it's all about marketing.
Right. Yeah.
There is very little there about dog training.
Right.
And it's like you were saying, the man makes an incredible amount of money, but who is he helping?
Yeah, well, this is the thing, and people are like, well, you're this and that. Look, people, this is something that's happened in the medical field of the United States, which is the highest medical costs in the world, and not the best. And when we're the best, you don't know anything because none of these people lived anywhere else. I've been in 5 medical systems. This is the worst of the 5 medical systems I've been in. It's slower. It takes longer. There's more delays. Yeah, you don't know because you don't have the operational experience, people. And the same thing with these people, they don't know about the people we're talking about, because when we were starting, most of dog training was hobbyists, mm-hmm. and I mean, it was all hobby. Obedience was a hobby. Because it was a hobby, they were purists, and they did it for the love of it.
Yes,
that's not what you see pet dog trainers, because you talk to them about any other type of training, they can't do any. That's why I call them out. That's why they're little leaguers. They can't train a hunting dog. They can't train AKC.
Gun dogs. They can't. And that's
can't.
On the lower end. Then you go up to search and rescue.
Yeah, right.
Service dogs. My dog Peaches. She's my service dog. I'm diabetic, and it took me 3 years. 3 years to start from the beginning to the end to teach her how to alert me and which sense that she needs to alert me to. And folks often thinks, oh, well, you're teaching your dog how to smell something. No, you don't teach a dog how to smell. They already smell. Well, what do you mean? Well, how do you teach them? You teach them to recognize a scent, and when they smell this thing, then to let you know that they're smelling it. Well, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, I'm not even going to go any further. I'm not going to.
Yeah, well, and also people who are interested in that, it's like, show your interest by following up. It's not about just handing out thousands and thousands of dollars worth of education and years of experience to the unknowing. That's something that also is like, oh, why don't you tell us how to do this? If you're interested, contact me, because I didn't get it for free, number one. And for example, back to the Jedi Dog Master Challenge, the people who train border collies and such, and Australian shepherds and that sort of thing to limp, they can't train a dog over 100 pounds out of limp, because the techniques that they're using will not work. Obviously, I'm able to do it. And I'm talking switch limping too, which is much harder than just one-sided limp. They don't know how. And they can't compete with me because they don't know. They don't know the method. I am not giving out the method. If you want to know the method, you come to me and we'll talk about it. But I'm not putting it out on YouTube to impress sub millennials or something with no attention span. It's not. Oh, you should do this and that. I get a lot of people saying that to me. It's like, no, I can do something you can't do or no one else can do. So if you want that skill, then you know where to come to. That's the main thing. You know where to come for the resource. Back in our day when we were starting, we had to search out the
We did.
resources.
It wasn't available. We didn't have the internet. And
Yeah.
if you didn't know the right thing to look for, I mean, you go to the
Yep.
library, and you go through the card catalog, and you may have maybe this many cards on dog training. Or, if you're lucky. And then you got to go through all the books and read through all that. We didn't have this instant, oh, let me show you how to do this, or let me show you how to do that. Hardly anybody even knows how to crack a book open anymore.
No, they
And
don't. They can't read. They don't know how to do. They research, and people are like, you're picking on us. Well, then prove me wrong. You know what I'm saying? Then prove me wrong. If you don't like what I'm saying, prove me wrong. But this is exactly right. What I was getting to with that was that we were the ones who went on the quest. We went on the quest. We didn't have people coming to us and saying, "Oh, learn this, please, please." No, that's
we paved the way. We
yeah,
had information. We're the ones that fell on our face, skinned our knees. We're
yeah.
the ones out there with the shovels making the new roads. You know,
Well, new roads. We're actually digging a grave for Zach the Hack George, which is what which is what we were doing.
I have a very strong feelings and I hope it's okay if I say this again. As
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mentioned to you earlier,
yeah,
trainers with the initials of, VS, ZG, and a few
yeah,
others.
yeah.
I personally think that they should probably go to jail for impersonating real dog trainers, but they are doing harm. I mean,
Well,
I've
this,
seen a lot of stuff with V,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. She's yeah,
later on, I've heard and I've seen reviews on her that
yeah.
the dogs were put down.
The reason why I pick on Zach is the Hack is because he's well known. He's huge, and he's got a lot of people, and it's all about ideology and not empirical evidence,
Where's
like
the
I said.
result?
And he can't, and he won't answer my video, just like Beckman won't answer because I don't get into going down red herrings with them. I'm just like, show me your dog doing this, show me your dog doing this, show me the dog you train like this, and Zach the Hack, show me how you train dogs to avoid rattlesnakes, show me how you stop the dogs from killing chickens. They can't do it. I said, and I want to see you guys do a recall of a greyhound going for a rabbit. You guys are not going to be able to do it with the methods you're using. And they just try to avoid that and go down because they
So
can't.
rather than avoid, why don't you go to somebody that knows how to
Yeah,
do it and be
exactly.
humble and say, I don't know how to do this. Can
Yeah,
you
right, exactly. And I'm not saying
I
that's
want to learn. I don't know everything there is to know, and
yeah,
I want to learn. And that's what I have over 800, literally 821 books on
yeah,
dog training in my library.
yeah.
And you know what? I want to know more.
So we've covered a lot of topics here. We've gotten a little animated on certain areas, but that's because it's important, and we think that we want to make an impact on people and show them that there are things that are possible that are you can do if you really want to commit yourself to actually doing that. And one of the things that I want to say, of course, is that if Jean Pam is in Hawaii, so it's not a huge population there, but if you happen to be watching this and you're in Hawaii, obviously you could go to her in person. I mean, yes, if you live on a different island, it might be a little problem, but you can go. It's closer than the continental United States or Alaska is to her, for
Yeah,
example.
I'm on Big Island. I'm on Big Island in Hillside.
But you can also do consults with her. That's what this technology is for. There's a wealth of information that you can get from her. There's a lot to learn from what she's doing. I'm certain that I'll be talking to her again. And you tell us what was your biggest impact from what we talked about. You can put the comments down below and such, and that'll help because it helps to, I'm not the big trying to get everyone to respond to every little thing like some of the channels that thrive on that sort of stuff. But it is important to help us get known because we're really trying to help the general public and also to help dogs. Although a lot of people say that, but we really are, because you can see that she has 8 dogs. I have more than that here. I have more than that. And this is something that if we can have that so many dogs, why don't you have at least 2? Why don't you have at least 2? Because 2 is easy. 3 is easy, actually. Three dogs are easy. It's nothing. Do you want to say anything in closing, or is that?
Oh, I am just really happy to be here, and I appreciated the fact that you even noticed me. And I think this is the channel that you've got going here it is the bomb. I know you're going to have a lot of success with it, and I absolutely want to keep close contact with you, Christophe, because I have a lot of respect for what you do, and I might even come by and ask you a few questions here and there if you don't mind, because you are so experienced. You have a wealth of knowledge, and I know a lot. Don't get me wrong. But you have a wealth of knowledge, and as I have explained to you before, I have no problem reaching out and say, you know what, this is going on. What is your take on this? You got to learn. We in the dog training world, real trainers. Let me emphasize. I feel that we need to get together and start working together for the benefit of these animals and the people who have them, rather than living our own little egocentric, existence and say, oh, no, I don't talk to nobody about what I do, unless you give me money.
Yeah.
And I think I have a real problem with that, because I'm not somebody who is money driven. I want enough money to feed my dogs, pay my bills, put gas in my vehicle, and the rest of it. My whole life is about dogs. If anybody out there would like some information, please, I'm sure Christophe or myself, please let us know, and I'm sure that we'd be more than happy to help you out. If that's okay.